AudioJungle.
A Grande Muralha da China protegeu os impérios chineses de invasores por milhares de anos durante períodos de prosperidade. A Grande Muralha também contribuiu para controlar a fronteira do território, permitindo a exigência de direitos sobre produtos transportados ao longo da Rota da Seda e a regulação do comércio e do controle da imigração e da emigração. Grande parte dos últimos 2 milênios, a China foi a principal economia do mundo, e a Grande Muralha era o símbolo de toda a sua grandeza. Porém, o desenvolvimento econômico chinês começou a declinar conforme o rápido crescimento dos países ocidentais durante a Revolução Industrial, o que permitiu que ultrapassassem a nação chinesa, fazendo a Grande Muralha perder a sua importância e sucumbir. Séculos após o seu abandono, em um momento histórico completamente novo, a China constrói uma nova muralha, com características tão similares como a da Grande Muralha, só que desta vez ela não pode ser tocada, e nem vista. Pesquisamos a fundo a fim de entender que muralha é esta. Conhecido como a Grande Firewall da China, o projeto Escudo Dourado é baseado em um mecanismo de vigilância e censura que permite que o governo chinês regule a internet do país. Essa noção regulatória é baseada no provérbio favorito de Deng Xiaoping, líder político da China durante toda a década de 80. Se você abrir a janela para um ar fresco, deve esperar que alguns insetos entrem. Este provérbio exemplifica a noção de pensamento do líder durante o período da reforma da China para uma economia de mercado socialista. A reforma abriu a economia chinesa para investidores estrangeiros. No entanto, o Partido Comunista da China teve que proteger a liberdade econômica, os valores e suas ideias políticas, e, para tanto, fecharam a janela. A internet na China funciona como essa janela e chegou como uma ferramenta de suporte inevitável para a economia de mercado socialista. Gradualmente, enquanto a disponibilidade da internet aumentava, ela se tornou uma plataforma comum, e o governo chinês teve que constituir uma estrutura que possibilitasse o controle dessa plataforma. Conversamos com o doutor italiano em Direito e Ciência Política da Universidade da China, Giulio Santoni, a fim de entender a relevância global da firewall chinesa. Para tanto, fizemos uma série de perguntas a serem respondidas.
China's firewall is a tool of the Chinese government to regulate internet not through the market but through its own political procedures, because basically, thanks to the firewall, the Chinese government can exclude all the information that are not compliant to Chinese law, but more importantly, it can exclude entire companies that refuse to comply to Chinese law, and this includes, for example, Google and Facebook and Twitter and other very important American companies. The Chinese government can basically restrict data flows that are entering China. However, there are some technical tools that allow people within China to connect to the outside internet. These tools are, for example, VPNs, and they're actually quite common, first of all. And secondly, for a very long time, the Chinese government has refrained from fining or persecuting people that were using VPNs. So we need to ask ourselves, first of all, is the Chinese firewall a failure? And the answer to that is no, because the objective of the Chinese government is not to regulate all the speech that is on internet, but it has been for a very long time to only avoid that internet speech could influence the debate in China. So even if a certain amount of the Chinese population is able to access the global internet, this does not mean that the Chinese regulation of the internet is failing. the fact that foreign companies were excluded from the Chinese market also allowed some Chinese companies to grow and to thrive. In fact, there is a misconception that we need to clarify. That is, the fact that China has excluded itself from the global internet does not mean that internet services in China are necessarily less advanced. In fact, while internet speech can benefit from deregulation or spontaneous regulation from internet companies, on the other hand, there are a large amount of internet services that can actually benefit from regulation. These are, for example, e-commerce services or online payment services or online finance services, etc., etc. Cyber sovereignty is the Chinese theory of internet governance that is opposed to the multi-stakeholder theory. So the multi-stakeholder is based on the American conception, which I explained earlier, of that is, the optimal regulation for internet is the self-regulation by internet service providers. And because internet service providers are multinational companies that are active worldwide, so this would allow a global internet law to emerge from its companies and the users and the government interventions, etc., etc., which would better allow a global flow of information. Cyber sovereignty is the Chinese theory, which on the other hand believes that the state must have the power to regulate internet conduct. And the same way as the multi-stakeholder system, it has some advantages which we just discussed, but it also has some disadvantages that are, for example, that governments, especially very large governments such as the Chinese one, can prevent disruptive innovation from happening. Disruptive innovation is whenever a new technology emerges that disrupts the market. And on the other hand, if every country uses a firewall and regulates the internet, this can also prevent the global flow of information to flow freely. The Chinese model of internet governance is being exported. So there are a number of countries that share China's belief on that a centralized regulation of internet is the better choice, and China is ready to offer them the cooperation of Chinese internet service providers. That although most of them are actually private companies, they tend to have a close cooperation with the Chinese government. So the Chinese model is being exported, and this means that there will be more countries that will choose to adopt a firewall and to regulate internet behavior according to their national legislation. The Chinese solution to the problem of a free flow of information globally is that certain amounts of information could still flow between countries, although they adopt a national legislation through international agreements.
Com o estudo realizado e a conversa com o Giulio Santoni, podemos concluir que para o modelo chinês se tornar global, a comunicação entre sistemas de internet somente será possível se houver acordos internacionais entre os países que gerenciam esses sistemas, resultando em um fluxo controlado de informações.